I don't think 100 basis points is going to happen, honestly. I probably another 75. But in the grand scheme of things, what does it really matter anyway? What are they trying to do? They're selling people an epic lie. I think it's the biggest lie or deceptive management policy regarding inflation in the history of the freaking world here. They're trying to convince people, it's insane to me. They're trying to convince people that by nudging the federal funds rate, incrementally, oh, it's really going to help inflation. We're going to be fantastic. It's going to be great for everybody. How about no? All this is doing is guaranteeing inflation is going to continue to surge higher. They know it, and I think anyone with a functioning brain cell, just one, realizes that's the same story here. But it's not going to change here. The current environment is so twisted and so upside down. It's very difficult to make heads or tails of what's going on. But what we do realize, I think we should all know, is central banks are not done. They're going to continue to inflate. They're going out of their way to create more inflation. They're strangling to death an entire class of people. Have been pushing this narrative now for I don't know how many years, and it's in our face. It's going on right now. It's going to get worse, and people need to prepare for a worst case scenario. The global economy is in free fall, and the action of central banks proves it. Look at what they're doing. The European Central Bank now with unlimited bond buying. You got the Federal Reserve with some kind of backdoor program here to buy all the debt, and that's what their goal is, to own it all. That's the goal of central banks in aggregate, is to continue to buy assets with their own product that they just magically created out of thin air. It was only a matter of time here before all of this money creation was going to present the current issues that we have. Food inflation year over year is just up 10.4%. The goal here is to foster in a new system, period, the end. People are going to say, I've had enough. What did we also find out recently? 75% of middle income, by their own data, 75% of middle income earners here in the United States, they can't make it anymore. And you got a stock market that has been rallying recently off the continuing bad economic news. It's astonishing to see. Nothing makes sense. If you really sit back and understand what's happening, then it will make sense to you. The system is designed seriously to destroy an entire class of people, create more inflation, push wealth up to the one percenters, and then a new system is going to be instituted. Control. It's all about control. They're trying to make people dependent on the system. More people that become dependent on the system makes the system stronger. So what they're doing here, and I've outlined this, I don't know, for several years, is trying to get previous members of the middle class and force them to the lower rung of society here. Savings rate is now negative. We have people now here, personal debt, household debt, consumer debt continuing to skyrocket with no end in sight. And what they're trying to sell people is a very interesting thing. They're trying to tell people that swelling debt, either on a micro level, which is the individual, or on a macro scale globally, is growth. They're trying to twist this into some kind of another mind-bending scheme that inflating global debt is inflating global growth. Now, nothing could be further from the truth. We know for a fact, again by their own numbers, that the global economy is contracting at its fastest pace ever. But again, the deceptions, the lies, the distractions, the look here, don't look here, it's going to get a lot worse. We had that uncontrolled sell-off in the bond market. That 10-year yield started to spike. We were above 3.5%. In fact, we went up like 60 basis points in 2 days. And that put a lot of pressure on the stock market. Just by coincidence that the European central banks started buying more debt, and they increased that 3 times now so far. Now they went from increasing buying debt to increasing more, to increasing even more than that, to now unlimited. And now the Fed's obviously following suit. Look at the 10-year yield today. It's getting bought up. The 10-year yield is dropping. Very simply, is send a signal to the market saying, hey, don't worry about it. We're going to continue to buy the debt. We're going to continue to suppress rates. So start buying here. Who knows where this can go? Look, nothing matters anymore. When you have central banks buying it all, fostering that risk-on environment, meaning pushing cash into the stock market, earnings don't matter, forward guidance doesn't matter, PE ratios don't matter, bad economic news doesn't matter. You see, what people need to understand is there's no connection between what the stock market is doing and the economy. The stock market can go up and the economy will continue to free fall here. That gap is probably going to get wider. At least understand the dynamics that are in play, realizing that central banks need to continue to inflate, and then take the opposite side of that trade, allowing central banks to continue to buy all the debt for which they can do anything they want. They have no oversight here. Whatever it might be, another disease process or another variant, they got to throw cash at that. Expanding wars, they got to throw cash at that. Now we have this bill that's going through the Senate to subsidize the semiconductor industry here, which is essentially a backdoor bailout. I think people should understand that as well. And every other mechanism possible to continue to pull cash from the future. What people don't know, what the biggest secret is, it's in everyone's face, is that that's the system. It demands that debt be fueled, added to the current situation exponentially in order to function. Without doing that, it's over. They're going to go after people's freedoms and liberties more so. They're going to exert a lot more control on people. And I think their end game here is to, this may sound extreme, but to reduce the population of the world. They, as central banks, they control it all. They control the monetary system. They run the economy. They run it all. The puppets that they put there as figureheads, okay, they're just there as for something to people to look towards, because they believe that they are people that are actually pulling the strings, but it has no bearing on reality whatsoever. Central banks have unified, none more so than the Fed and the European Central Bank, and they're running the entire world economy. They're running it into the ground by design. The Federal Reserve and other central banks right now are on a mission to fulfill their final solution. Their final solution, and that should sound familiar to people, that term here I'm using, is again to exert maximum control on the population of the world. And this does involve a new system of maximum control, completely digital system. And at that point, again, look, they're not done. They won't be done with what they're doing now until they've managed to put whoever's left, members of the middle class, in such a way that they're going to be forced into that lower rungs of society and be forced to be a slave to the system here. This three-tier society that we have here, including a middle class, this is a new thing. It's only a couple of centuries old here. And it's going away. I've been explaining to people that we are going back into a feudal system, a two-tier society. That's part of the big plan. And that is, again, extreme control. I think willingly, in a lot of ways, people can't make it anymore. They can't survive, so they become slaves to the systems, which is the end game, which is the goal, the final solution, to create slaves, to create a world of slaves. What people need to do, in my view, is realize that we're in this environment of swelling debt here, and just take the opposite side of that trade. That is, being real things. I've been explaining to people since I started, well over a decade ago, to hold hard assets. Physical silver, my favorite asset of all time, physical gold here. Eventually, we're going to get a meltdown in the debt market. And this is not going to be by accident. It's being fueled by design. What I mean by a meltdown in the debt market is an uncontrolled spike in bond yields. Okay. And what that's going to do is exert pressure on the stock market, the complete opposite of what we've been witnessing since the meltdown of 2008. And cash is just going to move into, I believe, into commodities. And I think the most suppressed asset in the history of the world is silver.